Good evening. I'm going to Okay, Vicky started saying something and it made my brain just go blank. So I guess we're done. Go home. No, 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 no. It does. Amen. Okay, I'm going to invite our ushers to come on up. They're going to go ahead and collect the offering right here at the beginning while we are sharing in the announcements. I want to say welcome to worship on this evening that the Lord has made. We are rejoicing to be together on our final Wednesday evening. I can't hardly believe it that we are already through, and I'm staring at the ushers who are just standing back there talking, not coming in, and there they come. Okay, better late than never. Better late than never. Hey, there we are. We'll blame the weather. Yes, it's nice outside. It's hard to be inside. Let's see. I want to give a quick. Like they had to come up and high five me before they came up. That's true. Weather has tripped us up a couple of times. And actually, that's a good point because weather tripped us up earlier in this season. You may have noticed if you looked at the front cover of your bulletin that it says a different date. But it should. We're actually going with the one that we had to skip here a few weeks ago. So no, it is not March, whatever date that is. It is April 9th, but that's all good there. Tonight we have Ron Kerber's going to be our speaker. We are grateful to have him and also our guests from our sister congregation here in town. Always a joy when we are together. I want to say a quick note about Holy Week, which with our worship opportunities that are going to be happening next week. I can't believe it's Holy Week already, but we have two worship opportunities through the week. Monday, Thursday, which is of course Thursday, we'll have a very short service of Holy Communion and also a celebration with our fifth graders who have gone through communion instruction. Anyone is welcome to be a part of that. It will be a pretty short service, begins at 7 o'clock on Thursday evening. Then on Good Friday, also at 7 o'clock, we'll have our Good Friday worship, traditional liturgy that we normally don't do on a Sunday morning, and then also our service of Tenebrae at the end of the service as it comes together, also at 7 o'clock. And a reminder, no dinner next week. Unfortunately, dinners are all done. No more dinners, but we are grateful for those. As always, when we're done this evening, if you'll kindly leave your copy of Holden in the back, then we can use them next year when we come back around again. But with that, I'll invite you to join together. We will begin with Holden on page 2. Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world, the light no darkness can overcome. Stay with us now, for it is evening, and the day is almost over. Let your light scatter the darkness and shine within your people here. Joyous light of heavenly glory, loving glow of God's own face, you who sing creation's story, shine on every land and race. Now as evening falls around us, we shall raise our songs to you. God of daybreak, God of shadows, come and light our hearts anew. In the stars that grace the darkness, in the blazing sun of dawn, in the light of peace and wisdom, we can hear your quiet song. Love that fills the night with wonder, love that warms the weary soul, love that bursts all chains asunder, set us free and make us whole. You who made the heaven's splendor, every dancing star of night, make us shine with gentle justice. Let us each reflect your light. Mighty God of all creation, gentle Christ, who lights our way, loving Spirit of salvation, lead us on to endless day. May God be with you all, and also with you. Let us sing our thanks to God. It is right to give God thanks and praise. Blessed are you, Creator of the universe. From old you have led your people by night and day. May the light of your Christ make our darkness bright. For your word and your presence are the light of our pathways, and you are the light and life of all creation. Amen. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. O God, I call to you. Come to me now. Oh, hear my voice when I cry to you. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. Keep watch within me, God. Deep in my heart may the light of your love be burning bright. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. All praise to the God of all, Creator of life. All praise be to Christ and the Spirit of love. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you.
Protect me, O God, for in you I take refuge. As for the holy ones in the land, they are the noble, in whom is all my delight. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out, or take their names upon my lips. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. I keep the Lord always before me. With you at my right hand, I shall not be moved.
An angel went from God to a town called Nazareth to a woman whose name was Mary. The angel said to her, "Rejoice, O highly favored, for God is with you. You shall bear a child, and his name shall be Jesus, the chosen one of God Most High." And Mary said, "I am the servant of my God. I live to do your will." My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your servant here, and blessed me all my life through. Great and mighty are you, O Holy One. Strong is your kindness evermore. How you favor the weak and lowly one, humbling the proud of heart. You have cast the mighty down from their thrones, and uplifted the humble of heart. You have filled the hungry with wondrous things, and left the wealthy no part. Great and mighty are you, O faithful one. Strong is your justice, strong your love. As you promised to Sarah and Abraham, kindness forevermore. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your servant here, and blessed me all my life through.
Tonight's story having to do with Elijah in 1 Kings starts out, well, what comes right before what's in our bulletins tonight is when Elijah had challenged the prophets of Baal to see who could light the fire on the altar. And of course, the prophets of Baal had tried all day long and couldn't do it. And then Elijah, is this ringing a bell with you? One verse. And then Elijah even threw like 3 buckets or whatever of water on his wood, and God still lit the pyre, and the altar burned for the sacrifice. And then the prophets were slain. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. So she's going to get him killed, okay? Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him and said, "Get up and eat, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in the strength of that food for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away," he said. "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram." And now I'd like to introduce Ron Kerber. Ron is a high priest in our denomination. He has been an elder. He has been served as pastor from time to time, and he has also been on our Mission Center High Council. So, Ron.
I told her don't make it look too flowery now. You know, it isn't that way. It's good to be here. I want to say I was sitting downstairs this evening thinking back how long ago it's been since I ate down there. I think we were playing football in high school. That's only a couple of years ago, I guess, yeah. It's good to be here. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to come and share with you tonight. When Vicki asked me if I would be willing to speak and share a story, and I asked her, I said, "You want me to share a fishing story?" I can share a pretty good fish story too. But no, she had it in mind because she's heard bits and pieces of this story before. So I come tonight to share my own personal story about something that deals with what the theme for the evening is: brokenness by fear. And throughout our lives, we're often faced with the reality of two seemingly different and opposite things that can be true at the same time. The sun can be shining and it can be freezing outside. Two different things. And maybe the temperature might be freezing, but times can be hard, or it can be filled with optimism, kind of like what we're living in the times now. A project may never be finished, and yet it can be done. I don't know whether Merlin's ever finished a project or not. You know, he started a lot of them, and whether he finished them, but we may feel like we're on both, making a lot of progress, but we're still standing, and we're still standing still, or maybe even going backwards. Different realities, but true. And you know, in many ways, the season of Lent, to me, is very much like that. Lent, to me, is less about what we choose to give up for the 40 days that we journey, but more about how we make the time and the space to listen and discover what God is calling and inviting us to be, and what we are to do in our discipleship, and what we are about to become. Think about that. Therefore, Lent is about our journey of hope, and my journey as it relates to this theme, broken by fear. And it begins when I graduated high school. That's going back a few years. When I graduated high school, I come home to farm with my dad, and shortly thereafter I received a letter in the mail from the Department of Defense. And it says your selective service number is 6. So I kind of knew where I was headed, and I had to make a choice. They give you a chance to make a choice instead of being drafted into the Army. My dad was in the Seabees. He joined the Navy, or he was drafted into the Navy during World War II. And I thought, that might be a safe place to be. So I went over to Fort Omaha, and I enlisted in the Navy Reserve right there. And I drilled over there for the next year and a half. And then my unit was activated, and I was sent to Treasure Island in San Francisco. For 3 weeks, I sat there waiting for my orders to be processed. And once they handed me the pack of papers and said, you were to find your way to this ship, the USS Seminole. And I went to the Travis Air Force Base. First time I was ever on a big plane in my life. I was 19 years old. And I flew to Hawaii, and then on to Wake Island, and then to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. And they said, oh, your ship is not here. So I got back to Clark, and the next morning we flew to Saigon, Vietnam. And we circled the airport, Tan Son Nhut Airport, for about 2 hours until the rocket attack on the city was over. And the pilot says, we're going to land, and when we land, we're going to land fast. When the bay doors open, you're going to run to the bunker and stay there until the air raid's over, which we did. And then they picked me up in a Jeep and took me downtown Saigon. And I says, what a way to be introduced, the farm boy from Iowa, to the war, when I thought I was going to be on a ship safely in the ocean. But anyway, they took me downtown to a makeshift motel that the Seabees had taken over and were fixing up the plumbing, putting in new plumbing. And they said, take a bunk. The yeoman in the office there says, why did they send you here? I said, well, I don't know. They said I was supposed to meet my ship here. He says, this harbor isn't big enough or deep enough for a ship your size. He says, take a bunk and we'll find out where your ship is. But in the meantime, you're going to have to stand a watch. On the roof of the building, there was a bunker, with a machine gun. You had to stand a watch there for 4 hours a night, which I did. And got the dickens scared out of me whenever a sniper's bullet hit the antenna on the radio. And that wake you right up. But I was there in Saigon for a week while they figured out where my ship was. I thought it was interesting how the United States Navy couldn't find a ship, and where it was. But they got their wires crossed, and Yeoman says, "We found your ship. It's in Singapore, not Saigon. It's in Singapore, just a little further south down the coast." But he says there's only one hitch there. He says, "You can't get there with a military passport. You're going to have to make way down to the U.S. Embassy here in town and get a civilian passport in order to get down there. Because they won't receive, it's a neutral country. They won't receive the military into that country without being a civilian passport." So he says, "We're a little short-handed, and you're going to need to make your way down to the U.S. Embassy, kind of by yourself." I thought, here I am in a war zone in a big city, 6 million people, and I have no idea how to get to the U.S. Embassy or where it is. And this guy says, "Just flag down one of these guys on a little motorcycle with a basket on the front that would hold 2 people." I said, "Yeah, it looks like a kamikaze rig to me." And he said, "If you can communicate with them, they'll figure out how to get you down there to the U.S. Embassy." So I did that. And there is this language barrier, we made an understanding with each other where I needed to go, and he got on that motorcycle and I got in that basket. There was room for 2. And I'll bet we traveled for 45 minutes through that town before we parked right in front of the U.S. Embassy. And of course I walked and I told him, I said, "Now you stay here because there's no way I'm going to make it back or know how to get back to where I come here." And he stayed there and waited while I went in the building. They processed my passport. And when I come back out, I got back in the basket and he took me back. And I says, whenever I left California at Treasure Island, they give me $80 cash. That's all the money I had. And I was there for 3 weeks and traveling time to Subic Bay in the Philippines and then back to Saigon. What am I going to pay this guy? How much should I pay? And you ain't going to believe it, but all this guy wanted was a carton of cigarettes. It cost me $4. And I bought him this carton of cigarettes, and he was happy as a lark, driving me both ways. Back then, gas was cheap, but he did what he needed to do. I always felt like I wasn't riding alone. Somebody was there with me. I got on a Jeep then after I got back to the motel. Got on a Jeep, took me back to Tan Son Nhut Airport, and flew Vietnam Air, commercial airline, down to Singapore. Of course, you have to go through customs whenever you get into Singapore, and they dumped my sea bag out. It took me 3 hours to pack, and then I had to repack that, and then catch a cab and try to communicate to them. I had no idea where my ship was parked at, which dock it was tied up to. But I told the taxi driver, I says, "I'm looking for the Seminole," and he drove me right down to the pier. And I saluted the flag as I aboarded the ship. And we were there another 3 days. They were down there on R&R because the ship was already maybe 3 months into an 8-month cruise as they left San Diego. And they'd been up and down the coast of Vietnam, and we're now there in Singapore on R&R. You don't realize how close Singapore is to the equator, how hot it was. And when we left Singapore, the word was that we thought we were headed for Australia, which was pretty good service, you know, liberty and all. But I think it was more the catch that when you cross the equator in the Navy, you become a polywog from a shellback. That's a ritual you ain't going to want to travel again. Even the enlisted officers had to go through that. And I've got a sheet of paper that shows that you passed the test. When you kiss King Neptune on the belly, we had the big, heavy-set cook. He took a handful of lard, of course, you know, and he rubbed his belly real good, and then he grabbed you by the ears, and he made sure you kissed him. You know, they would save up garbage for 3 days while we were underway to get there, and the damage control officers were building this coffin affair, and I wondered, what in the dickens? They dumped the garbage in that, and you had to swim through it, and then get hosed off and wear your clothes inside out and backwards. You know, it was something else. But you know, it was all an experience. I've been an adventurous sort of an individual, looking for something new and different most of my life. But the fear come over me when I landed in Saigon. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, how do I get out of this country? And where's my ship at? When we got back and went back north again, we cruised up and down the coast of Vietnam for 45 days straight from that point on, holding operations. The ship I was on had 8 of these mic boats, they call them, or landing craft, that the cranes would lower in the water. And then when we go over from San Diego, we stop at Okinawa. We picked up 700 Marines and hauled them with all their gear in the holes below the mic boats. And we've hauled them to the beach in these operations, all the way up and down from Da Nang clear down to Saigon, and many times up these rivers and stuff to haul supplies to base camps. Harrowing experiences from time to time. I might say, you've seen some of the pictures on videos or films that would show these landing craft landing the Marines and letting them go out and play in the trees. And here come the rockets. And then I was an engineman running the engines on one of these mic boats. And you'd say a prayer and say, "Engine, don't fail me now," and hope that you could get back to the mother ship anchored 4 miles off the coast in a safe zone. It throwed the fear over me, but yet it was an adventure that as I look back today, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. It was an experience, you know, to be able to get to see a lot of the Orient that you would have never gone to. Into a war-torn country, in a war that you never won. After we left Vietnam, we cruised back up to Hong Kong. We're there for 12 days. And then from Hong Kong on up to Yokosuka, Japan. I've been into Yokosuka, Yokohama, Tokyo, Osaka, Sasebo, throughout Japan. And then back to Okinawa and unloaded the ship and made our way back to Pearl Harbor and then home to San Diego. I thought this was a good time for me to go home and get married. No kidding. the word was that they're going to decommission this ship. I thought, this is great. I'm going to be in harbor here in San Diego for the rest of my duration, in the military. The war was about to come to an end. So I went home. I got married and took my bride back to San Diego. I'd rented an apartment. I put her in the apartment and went back down to the base to check back in aboard ship, only to find out that while I was gone, there'd been a change of command. Of course, this new captain wants to try to make something of himself. We're going back overseas for another tour of duty, another 8 months. While I got back on ship, we went out to sea for sea trials, underway training for 2 weeks without any cell phones or no way of communicating with my wife where I was, or where I was going. And there she sat in the apartment waiting. But we come back in, and we were probably 2, maybe 3 months yet before we would leave, going through training and getting things prepared. But she says, I'm not staying out here in California if you're going to be gone. She called her mother. Her mother flew out there to help her drive back home. But again, I made a trip across the ocean back to Pearl Harbor, and then on to Okinawa, and then back to Da Nang, and then back to Subic Bay in the Philippines, and back and forth from the home port away from home. Back to Hong Kong, back to Japan, over another course of that 8 months. But the experiences of being an engineman and running the different engines on board the ship and in those landing craft, it truly changed my life. It made the 19-year-old boy grow up, because I'd gotten married at 20, 21 years of age. And as soon as we got back, off that 8-month cruise, I think they were out of eggs, to be honest. You'd have to crack a dozen eggs to find a good one. Yeah, it'd make you lose your appetite for breakfast in the morning. You'd see them load eggs, and they'd last that long. And I thought, this is no good. But what an experience. It's not any different than the journey we've been on, through these 40 days. But what an experience it's been to know that, God has been right there all the time, right along beside us. And have we taken the time to listen? Have we taken the time to discover what he's speaking to you and saying to you? I felt the safety, and with the assurance that he was there every step of the way. All one needs to do is look at the 58,000 names on the wall that didn't make it back to realize how safe you were, where you were at on board that ship. But there were some harrowing experiences along the way. One event when we were all 8 mike boats traveling up a river for 25 miles to supply an outpost, and a machine gun nest was shooting at the boats as we went by. And one of the boats took quite a bit of fire. As long as it was underway, it was okay. But when it got back and we tied up next to the ship, it began to sink, and this boat was standing on end in the water. And the captain says, cut the line, let it go. Well, the coxswain that drives that boat, it's a 3-man crew with an engineman, a coxswain, and a lieutenant JG, a junior grade officer, to make a crew. And the coxswain says, "That's my boat. I'm not going to lose that." They got a hook on it and lifted it out of the water. And it was just riddled with holes. But they got it back aboard the ship. They welded them up, and back forth it went again. It's just that kind of thing that helped us, survive the helicopters. I can still hear helicopters today. That war was run by helicopters and Air Force, and I still hear them helicopters running today. Even while we were underway and replenished, pulling up alongside of another ship and shooting a line across to pull a cable across, to pull a hose across to refuel. I sat in the engine room in the base, down in the bowels of the ship with a set of headphones on. You can't see out, but you got a communicative link to the conning tower and running the steam turbine engine down there, 6,000 horsepower engine. It's only about 140 degrees down there in that engine room with 750 degree superheated steam. There's no way of getting away from it. 4 hours, it'll drain you. But in that 4 hours, while we're underway replenishing, we might go through 200 different speed changes alongside each other as you maneuver just so far apart while they transfer goods and supplies back and forth. The helicopter in the flagship was the USS Tripoli. That was a helicopter carrier. The helicopters would be lifting off and landing on the fantail or where they would land and drop off supplies there, where they'd bring us mail as well. And all of this was while we were underway. When I did my basic training in Great Lakes, one of the guys asked, all those of you that know how to swim, come with me. All the others come with him. They never did teach me how to swim. And I thought, this is strange. We went over a lot of water, and it always worried me, how deep is this water here? I went over some water, folks, that was 4 miles deep. It's hard to believe that. But we went over some water also when the captain would say, below us now is where one of the biggest battles that was fought in World War II. A lot of ships down there. It made you think. It still made me feel safe to be on the ship 4 miles off the coast, but yet taking that chance, running that landing craft to the beach and then getting back. I wasn't alone. I felt safe. It was a journey in my life that changed me and made me become a man. Something I can think back on today and relate to and never forget. It's been my life story. But I found comfort in the scriptures from the Psalms, the 27th Psalm. It speaks to us as the Lord is my light and my salvation, and whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When you read that, I ceased being afraid. It was a journey of an experience to be able to see all the places I did in the Orient and ride with God by my side, to be able to make it home from there and not be counted as one of the 58,000 that didn't. I feel blessed because of it, and blessed to be able to be here to share with you tonight. And with that, I want to wish you all a nautical prayer, a nautical blessing, in other words. I wish you fair winds and following seas as we continue on the rest of your journey through life. May God bless.
Nautical blessing? Do I have that right, Ron? Nautical blessing. All right. Well, you know what? That's a blessing. So we don't need to do the final blessing. We had our final blessing. Thank you for being with us tonight. Go in peace. Serve the Lord.